What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. So I'm here today to talk about Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip, Season 3, Episodes 4 and 5. So, Episode 4, Dangerous Games, it kicks off on the morning of day 4, but I was kind of confused because in the last episode, we saw them, like, the day was spent on the yacht, it was Alexia's day, and then the episode ended with, like, the leads kind of preparing for a night, and it didn't look like they were going to bed or anything. It looked like they were getting ready for like a nighttime event. And then episode 5, they kind of reflect back and we learn that Heather actually hosted an evening on like the night before. So I'm like, why didn't we see that event? Why didn't we see that dinner? I was kind of confused because I wasn't expecting to start on the morning of day 4. I was expecting to start like the evening of day 3. You get me? But, regardless, the morning of day 4, Candiace and Leah, they're still kind of chatting about Leah's bullshit with Portia and Gizelle. And Candiace is just exhausted with the whole drama so far. Because remember, she's been calling her mom every day, crying to her. She and Chris are on the best terms. Candiace is just really overwhelmed. At breakfast, Heather, she's asked about how she is with Whitney. And she says that she can compartmentalize anything. But Heather said that the issue with Whitney is a lot deeper now because of the whole Mormonism drama that Whitney brought up. Basically, Whitney accusing Heather of, like, being a hypocrite, going with this whole image of being the bad Mormon, but she hasn't, like, formally, legally, on paper, politically, like, left the church. So yeah, and Heather accuses Whitney of trying to please the big dogs, essentially, and it's like, well, Heather's one to fucking talk. Like, Heather's been kissing Portia and Giselle's ass this entire trip so far. Whitney is kind of like with the whole thing about Gizelle, like Whitney seriously debating showing them the photo of Heather's black eye. It was like, Whitney. So like, Whitney was kind of playing into it as well, but it's like, Heather, you're playing into that shit first. Like, to be quite honest, she was gawking at Portia's 7 million Instagram followers, like, from the first day. Leah adds that Whitney told her to watch out for Heather, which she finds ridiculous, so Leah's team Heather, essentially, and Heather's bothered, and she calls Whitney's actions destructive, so we'll see what's up with that. Portia then says that she had a super fun excursion planned, but there's like rain forecasted, so it's going to wind up having some massages and some team building activities afterwards. Whitney FaceTimes Lisa, kind of fills her on some of the drama going on between her and Heather, saying the shit from the season keeps coming up, and it's like, well, it keeps coming up because of you and Heather, and, like, everyone's kind of over this, so we'll see later on. Lisa then says that Heather's upset because people are starting to see her for who she is, a liar. And meanwhile, Portia, she's kind of giving Heather some advice of how to, like, move on with Whitney. Portia's like, you're a spiritual woman, you could give grace, especially if she's your blood, your cousin. Like, Portia's really kind of giving some advice. And at one point, Portia asked Heather, like, okay, well, when did you apply to get your name taken off the list? Because remember, Whitney said, oh, well, like, it took me, a long time to get off of the list, but, Heather's not even doing it. But in Portia's mind, like, Portia was under the assumption that Heather had applied, but she just hadn't been, like, removed yet. But Heather's like, oh, no, like, I haven't even applied. Like, in the future I might, but it's not important to me. None of my money goes to them, blah, blah, blah. So Portia's kind of taken aback by this, because, again, Portia thought she had applied to take her name off, and she's like, girl, what the hell? And she just feels like, she's kind of side-eyeing Heather's story. And she's like, you're not a bad Mormon, girl. You're a bad liar. So everyone's starting to kind of side-eye. So in this episode, it really became evident that people are side-eyeing Heather. And people are also kind of getting over Candiace. Not really the viewers, although I'm sure the sentiment is shared, but like on the actual show. Like, they're kind of over Heather and Whitney's bullshit. They think Heather's a pathological liar, and they think that Candiace just is immature, essentially. So that's kind of the sentiment in these 2 episodes that we really start to see. Leah, she goes to the little on-site confession booth. She says that it doesn't feel like a healthy environment, and she's not having the best time. She says that she isn't really into the unequal dynamics. She says she'd rather be alone than be a follower, and she's like, Candiace is the only one who stands up for her. And I knew that Candiace and Leah would hit it off. Like, I knew it right off the bat. Initially, before Portia was on the show, it was supposed to be Leah and Tinsley from New York. But Tinsley, allegedly, she was taken off of Ultimate Girls Trip because She was supposed to be on Legacy, allegedly. I don't know. But then Portia came on. And so, yeah, I felt like Candiace would get on with the New York girl, with Leah, and I thought Tinsley as well. So, yeah, we see that playing out on the show. It's a massage time, and Marisol is moaning like a motherfucker. She's at one point, she's even like, harder. Marisol is having a time. The other girls are laughing. And then Candiace asks, oh, is this a bathhouse? Are we at a brothel? And it's like the editing switch to like be a little like porno. We see Leah, she's like, oh my god. It's just like really bad. But yeah, it's really funny. Afterwards, Heather, she realizes that she hasn't been doing the Spirit House offerings in the morning. She's talking about it with Alexia and Marisol. And then we learn that I think the day before, Marisol left an offering of like this bottle of alcohol, and it was like this really good alcohol. And then she walked away and was like, actually, no, I'm taking it back. It takes backsies. And so it's like, Marisol, like, you can't fucking take that shit back. But so yeah, they do that. Heather and Gizelle, we then see them together kind of sitting off to the side. And Gizelle suggests that they check in with Jen Shaw. And it's like, bitch, what the fuck? And it's like midnight New York time. They went up trying to FaceTime Jen, but she doesn't answer. And Gizelle has no fucking shame. Like, she's in the fucking, like, if Jen were to have answered, she would have seen Heather and Gizelle right away. Like, it's not like Giselle was off, like, Gizelle was right there, unashamed. It's the first we see a fucking detective officer Gizelle, just, like, trying to be, or, as she says, super sleuth Gizelle. But yeah, she doesn't fucking answer. They segue to lunch. I think this was set up by Portia, because again, this is Portia's kind of day. Candiace is annoyed because like a hibachi kind of thing, like it's like raw and you have to kind of cook it yourself. But it's like, Candiace, shut up. Like I said, yeah, in the last episode, it was like Candiace hates the outdoors. She hates having to cook shit. It's like a little hibachi. It's not like she's having to grill a fucking burger or a steak. It's like a little hibachi, kind of like little thin strips of meat, little oysters and shit. Like nothing crazy. Later on, she freaks out and has to have Leah and Heather, like, remove, like, a moth from it's like, oh my god, Candiace is, like, so extra. But yeah, she's annoyed at the little hibachi grill. Leah's annoyed because she says she can't eat anything because it's, like, all soaked in pork oil, and she converted to Judaism, like, 2 years ago, so she can't. In the confessional, Candiace says that she actually always thought that, like, she and Portia would get along. She also kind of, pays homage to, like, the Real Housewives of Atlanta. She's just kind of like, I remember seeing it and thinking, like, oh, it's showing these black women in this new light that they've never been shown in before, kind of giving them their flowers, essentially. And she says that she always thought she and Portia would get along. And I'm like, did you think that from, like, Portia's freshman season? Like, when she was, like, married to Cordell still, was all, like, prim and proper? Is that the Portia you thought you'd get along with? You know what I mean? Or, so yeah, and she says that she was ready to come into the trip and shock everyone by, like, getting along and being buddies, but that's just not happening. And it's like, well, yeah, it's not fucking happening. And, Candiace and Portia kind of had issues from the very first night. Portia was kind of lecturing Candiace a little bit. Candiace was vocally pushing back. Candiace kind of carried the sentiment over to the next day, the whole drag show name, or ladyboy names, excuse me. So yeah, it's like, on the one hand, I kind of get what Candiace is saying, but it's like, well, it is what it is, girl, and it isn't what it isn't. In real time, we know Candiace and Portia are on good terms. Candiace went to one of her weddings. But I say one of her weddings because, again, Portia had a Nigerian-themed wedding and, like, an American-themed wedding. Candiace went to the American-themed one, and Monique went to the Nigerian-themed one. So that's how Portia kind of split them up. But it's also like, well, Candiace, don't act all innocent, like you haven't contributed to, like, you and Portia not getting along. You know what I mean? Like, it takes two to tango, girl. At the table, while they're eating, Candiace addresses Portia, and she's emotional from the very beginning. She's using a comically large triangle, like, it's usually just, like, a tissue folded with, like, a little triangle, but it's, like, she's using, like, a whole ass napkin that's folded, and Portia's making fun of her in the confessional. It's really fucking funny. Portia then says that Candiace she communicates either by cursing at you or crying. And Portia's like, as long as you're getting one of those two things, you know you're getting her true feelings. So she kind of deduces that. Candiace then brings up how it was really difficult for her to deal with the aftermath of the whole, her and Monique's whole thing in season 5, because there are a lot of false narratives going around that were in Monique's favor. And she brings up how on Portia and Gizelle's little chat room show, that Portia kind of previously said that, Monique told me that Candiace filed a lawsuit against her so she could pay the down payment on her new home. So that's what Monique told Portia allegedly, and Portia said that on the show. And that really bugged Candiace because she's like, I didn't know you back then, blah, blah, blah. And that was kind of the spark of when she and Portia started to not really get along, because I think Candiace responded to that online, or I don't fucking know, but that came up. And Gizelle chimes in, because remember, Portia and Gizelle, that's how they know each other from that show. They like co-hosted it. And Gizelle's like, well, Candiace, like, you're disregarding the fact that, like, right after Portia said that, I shut that down and I was defending you. And we see a clip of Gizelle being like, oh, Portia, that's ridiculous. Like, are you kidding me? So kind of Gizelle speaking up for her. And Candiace is like, well, it's not the same as me giving a statement. Like, Candiace is saying that she just wishes she had the opportunity to give a statement. And it's like, well, bitch, that's how fucking life works. Like, they didn't reach out to you to a statement. They also didn't reach out to Monique for a statement. Monique gave one. So Candiace is just annoyed that she didn't get the opportunity to give a statement. But it's also like, well, girl, with how you are on social media, frankly, you can give your own damn statement. And any publication reporting on that thing is going to see your social media thing. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, Candiace, don't act like you don't have your own platform. Like you don't have your fucking Twitter fingers. And like, you don't know what it is. You know what I mean? So it's just really fucking weird. And again, she's disregarding that Gizelle spoke up. I'm actually with Gizelle and Portia on this one. And Portia says that Candiace is so set on like going after Portia, she's not realizing that Gizelle was there for her and had her back, essentially. But yeah, Portia says, oh, well, I brought hearsay, but Gizelle brought facts, blah, blah, blah. Portia's like, oh, well, you know, it was a second person. Monique gave me was a first person source because she was involved in it, blah, blah, blah. And then they get into this whole thing where Candiace is like, I graduated from Howard University School of because Candiace does have a degree in broadcast journalism. And Portia's like, okay, that's fine and dandy, but I'm the one who works a journalism job. Candiace says, well, I've had journalism jobs. And it's like, oh my gosh. It's like, what is this? Like, what the fuck is the point of this? But yeah, and then in the confessional, Candiace, she says that it's interesting to see that Portia is doubling down on her foolishness. And she also adds that Portia obviously hasn't learned from the first time she repeated things that she knew weren't true. AKA the whole Dungeon Gate shit. Portia repeating what Phaedra told her about Candy and Todd. And I was like, wow. And I was like, well, Candiace, why are you, like, say it. Like, say the whole thing. But probably, I don't know. But it's like, it was really interesting. Oh, and before moving on, Marisol, she's like, it's a fluff opinion show. It's not like it's investigative journalism. And Portia and Gizelle are just laughing, like, is that a thank you or a fuck you? Like, but yeah, so Marisol says that. It's pretty fucking funny. And then it's game time. They break into teams, obviously, because, like, the Salt Lake City girls, Potomac girls, the Miami girls, they're all in their duos. But Leah and Portia, they form a team. And they're like, oh, well, we're not in the same city, but, like, we can do, like a Brangelina, like a little celebrity name combination. And Portia suggests, she's like, poor Leah. Like, poor dash Leah. And I'm like, oh, so, again, it's like poor Leah, Portia, Leah, but they're like, poor Leah, like, what the fuck? So, yeah, they do that. The first game is basically volleyball. It's like, it's the Thai version of volleyball. I forgot the name of it, but, so yeah, doing that while they're wearing elephant costumes, just kind of, in homage to what, their elephant sanctuary. Then do a little tiny hands game where, like, one person is sitting on a chair and their teammate behind them is feeding them with, like, little tiny baby hands, and whoever eats the most wins or whatever. And at one point, we just see Candiace's face while she's eating it. She's like, oh. It was really funny. Candiace beat Portia and Miami beat Salt Lake City by default. just little fun games. And the last one is called Spew It or Chew It. And the people basically have to answer a question. And if they don't want to answer, they have to eat a piece of a scorpion. And Alexia, her question is that she has to rank her husbands in bed. Obviously, so that Todd is number one, that the father of her children is number two, and Herman, who's dead, is number three. It's like, of course, how else is she gonna fucking order it? You know what I mean? Candiace, then she gets a fuck, marry, kill question about Monique, and I think it was like actually marry, kill, or bang, shebang. And Candiace is like, I would bang Monique to death. Like, that's what she says. And like, that's a stupid question. You couldn't come up with a better question for Candiace? I don't know. Giselle gets a question about who would make the least amount of money on OnlyFans. And she says, Marisol, just because I don't think you'd get it. So she basically calls Marisol old. Leah's asked who from Roni season 13 should not be asked to do Legacy. And she refuses to answer and eats a piece of scorpion. And she's like, I don't do casting or hiring or firing, so I can't say. And so, of course, she's going to eat the scorpion. Because, like, she can't say herself. She can't say Ebony. She brought her onto the fucking show. Like, she can't say one of the other cast members. Because, like, Leah would get dragged for filth. People would be like, I'd rather see her than you. So it was like, well, Leah, she really couldn't say anything, you know what I mean? Whitney is asked to name 3 times that Heather lied on camera. And it's like, oh my God. But she says she doesn't want to be messy anymore. And she wants to actually talk with Heather and not just, feed into the bullshit. So she eats scorpion. Heather says that Whitney has to either be a friend or an enemy, though, because it's just bullshit. So, yeah, Whitney makes this big old thing. No, I'm trying to move on with Heather. But Heather's not having it. But we'll see that Whitney's full of shit later on. Heather's asked about who gave her the black eye. She eats scorpion. And Marisol's asked who she trusts the least, and she answers Leah. So that's the game. Gizelle then gives ladies 45 minutes to get ready for her Mardi Gras dinner. There's some tension brewing between Alexia and Marisol rooming together, though. And mind you, this is day 4. And, they're sharing a room together. So it's like, that would be rough. You know what I mean? But yeah, so there's some tension brewing. Marisol's kind of being a little messy. And they get back to the room and Marisol's bitching that they haven't even cleaned their room yet, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, Pepsi needs to do his job. And Alexi's like, no, Marisol, Pepsi's here to, he's busy. He has all kinds of things to do. And Marisol's like, oh no, but he just wants to be laughing and giggling with us. They could send someone down here, has to do, Marisol's just kind of bitching about that. Alexi's kind of getting annoyed with Marisol, so we see some tension brewing, so I'm excited to see them pop off. And I must say, that I haven't been as irritated with Alexia and Marisol on Ultimate Girls Trip as I have on Miami. You know what I mean? I'm actually kind of that's what I love about Ultimate Girls Trip. You get to see people in a new light. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. The ladies all then get ready and they have all these little Mardi Gras masks and shit. And on the way to dinner, Portia says that Candiace has been gunning for her and Gizelle this entire fucking trip. And she's like, but if me and Gizelle were to get her at the same time, she'd cry, bullying, bullying. Gizelle says that nothing she does is ever good enough for Candiace. And Portia actually says that and she's kind of demolishing your character and brings up the whole shit about Chris Bassett. She's like, she's saying that you're lying about what you're saying about her husband. She's demolishing your character. And Gizelle brings up how, she told me on camera? She's like, I'm the reason that people don't come forward with sexual assault allegations. And so kind of like how in Potomac, Candiace was talking about how Gizelle was demolishing Chris's character. Now, people in this van, Portia, Gizelle, Alexia, and Marisol, they're chatting about how Candiace denying Giselle's claim is shitting on her character. You know what I mean? So it's kind of interesting how the turns are tabling to reference the meme. But yeah, it's talking about that. It's interesting. You know what I mean? They then get to the restaurant. There's a yummy food spread. Gizelle speaks on the significance of New Orleans. That her family's from there. She spent all her summers down there as a kid. Candiace then she burps at the table. And Alexia and Marisol kept talking shit in Espanol about it. And it's like, oh my gosh, she's so disgusting, and she's laughing about it. Oh my gosh. And it's like, these bitches are doing exactly what Gizelle said they were gonna do. And it's like, oh my god, like, don't give Gizelle any validation. Like, oh my god. It's like, no, Alexia and Marisol, because they're all like, no, if we're talking shit about you guys will know it. And it's like, what the fuck is this then? Like I said, Alexia and Marisol in particular, they're really not feeling Candiace anymore. They're getting annoyed with her. Although, interestingly, on some of the interviews they've done since Ultimate Girls Trip, they've been like, oh, I was pleasantly surprised by Candiace. Like, I was most pleasantly surprised by Candiace. So, I don't know if they end up getting on better and good graces by the end of the trip. I think this is like a 10-day trip, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, a 10-day trip, and they're having Alexia and Marisol fucking sleep together the entire time. Like, oh hell no. That's a lot for any friendship. They then head inside for some king cake, which I've never had, but it's really similar to Rosca de Reyes, which you have for this one holiday in Mexican culture. And it's the same kind of thing. Like, you cut into it, and you see if you get a little baby in there. The same kind of concept, but like different occasions, you get me? That's kind of interesting. They play a round of reasonable or shady, because it's Giselle's event. She brings this, she mentions that she did it on season 6 of Potomac. It was a hit. They have some like low stakes questions. There's something about, she references Marisol's tummy ache, Alexia's comment about Miami's comeback. Nothing too crazy. They didn't bring it, they're asked like, oh, is it reasonable or shady to call people bullies when you've been adding drama as well? Like some shit like that. Or to call people bullies when it's not true. Something like that. Candiace doubles down. She's like, you guys are being bullies to me and Leah, blah, blah, blah. Portia says that Candiace wouldn't be defending Leah if Gizelle and Portia weren't against her as well. Gizelle then asks, oh, is it reasonable or shady to give a book title that you don't believe in? Referencing Heather. Whitney then takes the opportunity. Whitney, who's like, I don't want drama with Heather anymore, takes the opportunity to ask Heather, well, where are you at with leaving the church? Because you've been inconsistent. There's some back and forth between them, but Candiace, Marisol, and Portia are over it. They're like, they've been fighting for 4 days about church. Like, what the fuck? So they're all kind of over it. Whitney gives Heather this whole speech about how, like, oh, we're on different paths toward the same end goal, and I just want to be able to celebrate you once you finally walk away, blah, blah, blah. This whole fucking thing. Everyone then raps, and they cut into the king cake, but there's no baby. Like, they can't find the baby. And Marisol makes a uterus joke, like, there's never gonna be a baby in there. It's just like my uterus. Something like that. I was like, oh my gosh, Marisol. Ladies then head back. Things are still weird between Whitney and Heather, and they're in the van together. But they're like, so it's kind of weird at first, but they're like all buddy-buddy later on. And in a separate van, Portia says that Whitney and Heather, they fall into the same fucking argument, and they wind up being all close again afterwards. So they're all kind of confused by it. Like, I could not do that shit. It's then the end of day 4. But before we end the episode, we see Whitney go to the on-site confessional booth. And she's like, I just want to clarify one thing. And she fucking takes it back to the fucking spiel or chew it game. And she's like, so the 3 lies that Heather said on camera are, she actually knows how she got her black eye. She was never friends with Lisa Barlow. And she hasn't left the Mormon church. And then Whitney, she has her little Mardi Gras prop. And she's like, so the masks are going to come off. And we're going to get to the bottom of the lies. It's like, what happened to no more drama with Heather Whitney? What happened to... So I'm kind of with Heather with the whole, like, either be a friend or an enemy, bitch. Like, this is bullshit. So, Whitney and Heather are really weird. Salt Lake City needs... I don't know what Salt Lake City... We'll see what happens with season 4. You know what I mean? Mary Cosby's allegedly back in a friend capacity. I think they're bringing on 1 or 2 other new people, supposedly. But I think one of them already has, like, a racism controversy. Like, once they announced her, it came out. I don't fucking know, girl. But yes, that's episode 4, and I'll jump into episode 5. So the next episode, Oh Bottle, Where Art Thou? It starts with day 5. Pepsi kind of organized for a Muay Thai trainer to come by, give some early morning boxing. Not all ladies participate, though. It's just like Heather, Whitney, and Leah, I believe. Heather says she's kind of letting off some pent-up aggression that she has towards Whitney, following her whole commentary about her book and her Mormon journey, essentially. And Jill's all impressed with Whitney's moves and shit. Just kind of some chill early morning shit. There's then some separate conversations about the night before. Marisol and Lexia, they acknowledge that Candiace is the worst with talking over people. And we see a clip of her being like, all right, everyone, shut the fuck up, blah, blah, blah. So again, Marisol and Lexia is kind of getting over Candiace at this point. Pepsi then shares the ladies are going to go into town for the afternoon, kind of do some shopping at Old Town Phuket. And Marisol's going to be hosting the evening event. Whitney then says that she's realized that no one's going to understand her and Heather's situation, their drama. So she's going to put a pin in it and have some fun. Halfway into the fucking trip, Whitney comes to this realization. And it's like, girl, and again, this is after she was like, the masks are going to come off and we're going to get to the bottom of the lies. The next fucking morning, I'm just going to put a pin in it. No one's going to understand it. And it's like, Whitney, what's going on? And watch, in like an episode or two, she's going to be bringing up the shit again. It's just like, this is the problem with Salt Lake City. That's, you know what I mean? Like, to be honest with you. That's why by the time the season 3 reunion came around, I was like, this is just the same shit. You know what I mean? But yeah, then we see Gizelle go up to Pepsi, and she fills them in on this missing bottle situation. So, Gizelle, because remember, they were on the yacht. There's this bottle of Clase Azul tequila, and it was Alexia's event. She's like, oh, we have this tequila. And Gizelle was like, it's my bottle. I brought this bottle. This is my bottle. There was really a big old deal about it. But I guess it's because, according to Gizelle, she only drinks tequila. She doesn't drink champagne. She doesn't drink vodka. She doesn't drink any of that stuff. She only drinks tequila. And this specific brand of tequila. And she also mentions that it took like 3 weeks to, get the bottle over to Thailand. It's the only bottle in the fucking country, supposedly. All this fucking shit. And she cannot find the bottle. And she asks Pepsi, do you think one of the girls took it? And he's like, well, I mean, I don't know what else. Like, that's the only kind of option. So, yeah, Gizelle, she's kind of on a fucking mission. Gizelle then goes to Portia, kind of gives her the 411, and she says that court is going to be in session at lunch that day. We then see Leah chatting with Heather, and she brings up that Portia posted a photo on Instagram of, like, all ladies at the elephant sanctuary, and she tagged everyone except for Leah and Candiace. And I remember when this happened, it was on Twitter. People were like, oh my gosh, she tagged everyone except Leah and Candiace. It looks like they're having conflict, blah, blah, blah. It was a whole thing. So she's kind of bringing that up. And she says that's really shady considering how both Leah and Candiace both expressed how, like, some of the roughest parts of the show for them was dealing with the social media drama. And here's Portia starting some social media drama because everyone's obviously like, ooh, Portia's not here for Leah and Candiace. And because Portia is, like, much more popular in the fan base than Candiace and Leah. Candiace is more popular than Leah. Leah is, like, really unpopular in the fan base. But Portia is more popular than Candiace, I believe. From what I see on Twitter and in comments and shit like that, that's how it really comes off. So yeah, she's like, it's really shady. Candiace then comes and joins the conversation, and they're like, oh my gosh. And she predicts how Portia will react. She'll be like, I don't have to explain my Instagram to you. It's my Instagram. Leah says that Portia's going to be like, you guys just want my followers. You guys just want extra followers, blah, blah, blah. And Candiace says that Portia likes to act dumb, but she's very aware of what she's doing, and she calls it passive-aggressive high school bullshit. The ladies then all head to Old Town Phuket. Portia kind of, she tries Marisol one of her screwdrivers, and in the van, she's like, oh my gosh, like, this is the strongest drink I've ever tried in my fucking life. And I drink Hennessy. And she's like, Marisol's been complaining about some of her insides and some of her issues. Well, girl, if you're drinking jet fuel, of course you're going to have some stomach issues. So, it was pretty fucking funny. Just because how Portia said, she's like, this is the strongest drink I've ever had in my fucking life. So, Marisol and Lexia then continue commenting on Candiace's mouth and, like, the shit that she says. Leah and Candiace are also kind of venting about Portia's passive-aggressive shade. All this shit. It's then shopping time. Pepsi comes through with his sugar daddy shit, gives all the girls a little bit of money and everything. Candiace makes a comment in confessional like, oh, I see Pepsi sugar daddy energy. Thanks, daddy. And she's like, is that what sugar babies say? Maybe we should ask Portia. I think she would know. It's a little funny little moment. Leah, who has been complaining about her period runs for days now, and obviously she's going to be dehydrated. She's saying how hot it is and how her insides are burning. It's like 91 degrees. I'm assuming it's going to be very humid out there. So where I'm from, it gets to be very hot, like in the, like 112 degrees and shit during, like, the peak of summer. But it's, like, a very dry heat. So in the desert, you know what I mean? Whereas I know there are other places, like, when I was living in Vermont, it would be like 90 degrees, or like even 85 degrees, but it'd be so damn humid that's like awful. You know what I mean? It's a totally different kind of heat. So I'm assuming that's very humid out there. So Leah's very uncomfortable. And then and in the store, as everyone's just kind of like looking around and shit, Leah's like, oh, I can't feel my legs, and she collapses. And it's a whole ass scene. They're all kind of surrounding her, fanning her and stuff, trying to put her legs up, and she's like, no, don't put my legs up. I'm not wearing underwear. It's this big old thing. She's like, Pepsi, where's Pepsi? And Pepsi's like, well, geez, it's so bad. She's gonna fucking die. It's this whole fucking scene. In the confessional, Gizelle and Portia are making fun of her. It's like, oh, I don't like you guys. Oh. And they're also like, how do you not wear underwear on your period? And they're just kind of talking about that. And it's like, oh my goodness. They leave Leah in the fucking van with like some medical staff to kind of cool down and shit while the others go out to lunch. It's this whole thing. Candiace, Heather, and Whitney, they go to a dispensary to kind of get some little goodies. Heather's all like, oh my gosh, my pioneer ancestors, they believe in everything in moderation. So I think they would be disappointed in my excessive marijuana use. But, you know, I think they would like that I'm profiting off the land. And it's like, we've never heard Heather talk about this, like, at all before. She buys, like, a brownie and some gummies. And it's like, okay, girl. And Pepsi gives him a whole ass lecture. He's like, what you buy here, you have to finish here. Like, basically, you can't take it to the airport on you can't be on some locked up abroad bullshit. I haven't seen that show in a while. We didn't see Gizelle, Portia, Alexia, and Marisol shit-talking Candiace at the restaurant. Marisol, she's like, oh, she's either really quiet or just out of control. The dispensary girls then reunite with the lunch girls. Candiace admits to having an emergency blunt in her kitchen. It was like, oh my god. Like, that was kind of funny to me. And Gizelle now confronts the whole group about the missing bottle situation. And we have a little timeline. She's like, I know it was on the yacht. And I know it came home from the yacht because on the unrecorded night that Heather hosted, they had some shots or whatever. So yeah, we get a little timeline. Gizelle then says that Heather is suspect number one because she doesn't believe a single word that comes out of her fucking mouth. And Heather says she's just glad to, like, have been acknowledged by Gizelle. So she makes a little Mean Girls reference about how, like, at the beginning, like, oh, she pushed me and called me a fat bitch, but oh my gosh, I'm just glad she acknowledged me. So Heather's just glad to be on Giselle's radar at all. She's like, I could be a suspect if you want. It's fine. Candiace is suspect number two, and we learned that back on the Holidays of Potomac trip to Mexico, Gizelle allegedly convinced Candiace to, like, purloin a bottle of tequila because they're having a tequila tasting. And Candiace was like, oh, like, did we buy this? Should we take it back to, like, the resort? And Jill was like, oh, yeah, do it, yeah. But Candiace was told by a producer, oh, no, like, put it back. Like, we didn't pay for that. Like, you're going to go to jail. Like, no. And so Gizelle brings that up. It's like, oh, my God, Gizelle. So she's like, you tried to steal a bottle of tequila in Mexico. So, of course, you're going to be a suspect in this case. So Gizelle brings that up. And Marisol's suspect number three. And she's like, is it because I like to drink a lot or what? But Giselle's like, no, it's because of your commentary about the bottle. Because I guess Marisol was saying about how cute the mini bottles are of the Clase Azul tequila. And so Giselle's like, oh, maybe you want to take a full-size bottle. But my thing is, I don't think you can even take an open bottle through, like, customs. You know what I mean? Like, I know you can take, like, unopened bottles, like, in, like, your, like, suitcases. But can you take an open bottle? I don't think so. Like, I don't know. I'm not sure. I have to look into that. I never had to look it up or anything. But yeah, and Gizelle and Candiace are going back and forth because remember, Gizelle was airing Candiace out for almost stealing a bottle of tequila from a place in Mexico. They're going back and forth. Marisol tries telling Candiace to simmer down. And Marisol is over Candiace, and she says that, like, one-on-one she really likes Candiace, but when they're in the group, she's just crazy. That's what she says. Gizelle then says that she would like to search all the suspects' room. Marisol and Alexia immediately agree to this, and Heather and Whitney agree to it shortly thereafter. Portia didn't have to answer because Portia isn't a suspect because she doesn't drink. Because she was with Gizelle that night, and she, like, doesn't drink tequila. She only drinks Hennessy, I guess. So yeah, everyone agrees. But Candiace is like, hell no, I'm not gonna search my fucking room. But Marisol suggests, oh, why don't you have someone search the house? Like, none of us are there right now. Like, whatever. And Candiace is like, oh, like, I'll allow that, whatever. So yeah, they move on. Candiace then gives a little Leah update, and she brings up the situation about Portia not tagging them in the Instagram photo. And she's like, I just want to give you an opportunity to explain it and see if it was an oversight. But Portia says, oh, hell no, it wasn't an oversight. And what do I have to explain my Instagram to you? Blah, blah, blah. Well, you guys want my followers? You know, asking all that shit. And Candiace is talking about how, like, Portia's just kind of causing drama on social media for no reason. But Portia's like, oh, I don't care. I don't care. Candiace says it's a form of cyberbullying, which literally everyone at the table, like, rolls their eyes at. And yeah, Portia says that Candiace is reaching, but Candiace says that's just fucking petty. Portia asks if Candiace is her, and proceeds to kind of fold a triangle for her. And Candiace, like, fake cries. Marisol says that Candiace is being weird. Marisol's not feeling Candiace at all. And then Candiace says that Portia is being passive-aggressive and petty. And Lexia's like, well, Candiace, you're kind of coming at Portia, but you told us all to shut the fuck up the night before. And then Candiace's like, well, Alexia, you talk so much. So now Candiace and Alexia are going at it about basically accusing each other of, like, talking a lot. So yeah, and Portia says that Candiace can't have a regular conversation. She just goes from 0 to 100. And Candiace says, you know, we were all good until this Instagram thing. I'm like, were you all good, Candiace? Like, were you all good before the Instagram post? Because I don't know if I believe that. Portia says that's not a big deal, and Candiace just wants her followers. There's some more back and forth before Portia's like, oh, did you eat today? Like, you need Pedialyte, PJ. And PJ is Portia's 3-year-old daughter. Then Portia's like, PJ's in Thailand. Just kind of calling Candiace childish. Pepsi then intervenes and ends lunch, finally. And he has the baby segue to a little tuk-tuk ride and like a little taxi for a tour. As they're about to start the tour, some random person comes up and asks to take a photo of Candiace and Heather. And they're like, I don't think he has any idea who we are. He's like, oh, Americans, you guys are probably famous. And Heather's like, he probably thinks I'm Nicole Brown Simpson. And it's like, Heather! Like, what the fuck? So unnecessary. They get a little 2 minutes. They literally go around the fucking block for like 2 minutes. Then they have to head back home. And I wonder if it's because, like, the lady spent so much time arguing and Pepsi didn't want to interrupt. And they only had the tuk-tuk ride only for a certain amount of time. I'm like, maybe that's why? I don't know. But yeah, it was a really fucking short. And they head back onto the van. And in the van, Heather's talking all big and bad and shit about Gizelle naming her as a suspect, wanting to search their rooms. She's like, bring it, Gizelle. Bring it, Alpha. I'm not doing these bullshit games. She's like, I almost Teresa Judiced at the table. I almost flipped that table. And it's like, Heather, you didn't say anything. You agreed right away. And we're like, I'm okay with being a suspect. I'm just glad to be on Giselle's radar. But here she is now talking all big and bad and shit when, yeah, it was kind of out of nowhere. And Whitney says that Heather's two-faced and she should have said that shit in the moment, which I agree with. In the other van, Portia says that Candiace is thirsty for attention. She thinks that she's a fucking actress. She just, you know, is just fucking thirsty to be noticed by Portia. They get back to the resort. Candiace checks in on Leah and kind of fills her in on the shit with Portia, all the extra shit that went down at the restaurant. And meanwhile, Gizelle is telling production, I want someone to search Candiace's room now. I need someone to go into Candiace's room and search. And they're like, we don't have Pepsi do it. And she's like, okay, that's fine. But is Pepsi gonna go into her suitcases and shit? I need someone who's gonna be like thorough and who's like serious about this. So Giselle's making demands, being a fucking cop and shit. And it's like, oh my goodness. She then busts into Leah's room while she's talking to Candiace. And she's like, oh, well, you know, I'm sure that Candiace would love to get off the suspect list. So who do you want to search your room? And Gizelle, she like demands someone goes with Candiace to search her room. Because Candiace is like, no one's gonna come in and search my room. Like, fuck you, Gizelle. And she questions if Jamal's alimony checks aren't clearing fast enough. So brings all these fucking producers and shit, and Candiace is just not with it. She's like, no, why isn't my word enough? Like, I'm not gonna have you search my room. This is just insulting to my character. And Candiace, Giselle's whole thing is like, oh, well, if you have nothing to hide, then what's the problem? Like, don't you want to be cleared as a suspect? But Candiace is like, no, I'm not. Like, it's demeaning to my character, and I'm insulted. I'm not gonna, like, validate this by letting you search my room. Like, fuck off. So yeah, this kind of going off. Giselle's telling her to prove it. And when Candiace declines, Gizelle calls her a criminal. And Candiace said that Gizelle's acting like a Karen, going back and forth. And I'm with Candiace on this one. Like, what the fuck gives Gizelle the right to, like... And I'm also disappointed with how Alexia and Marisol just went along with it. Didn't push back. It's like, you're gonna let this bitch just order a fucking search on your room? Like, no. Like, fuck off. So, I'm with Candiace on that. Gizelle's definitely acting like a Karen, being a fucking cop for no fucking reason over some liquor. And it's like, well, girl, like... You're gonna have to fucking get used to another tequila. Like, I don't know, girl, but that's it for this episode, or these 2 episodes, should I say. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned for more. Thanks again. Bye.